Now, in her anticipated keynote speech, Harris praised President Joe Biden. During speech, Harris also articulated her vision for America's future, contrasting it with what her campaign characterizes former President Donald Trump's dark conservative vision for a second term in the Oval Office. Now, she also hit out at Donald Trump over abortion and reproductive rights. Harris said that doctors are afraid to help women because of the strict abortion laws that Trump advocates. She also said, and I quote, "Donald Trump is an unserious man. When he failed to throw away your words, he sent an armed mob to the Capitol." Now, in lieu of all of this, joining us on the broadcast is our international colleague from CNN, Rafael Romo. A very good morning, Rafael. He is here to shed more light on the much anticipated speech of Kamala Harris. Thank you for joining us. Well, Rafael, help us understand what are the key takeaways from Kamala Harris's acceptance speech and how did she actually outline her vision for her country's future?
Kohina, good morning to you. A good evening from Chicago. Well, the speech was meant to introduce herself not only to the delegates here at the convention, but also to the American voters at large. And she also was trying to mark a contrast between her and her Republican rival, former President Donald Trump. And she said the path that led me here in recent weeks was no doubt unexpected. And she was referring to the fact that her candidacy was only launched about a month ago when, as you remember, and many of our viewers may remember, President Joe Biden made the decision to step aside after he had a disastrous debate, and she decided to go for the presidency. And so she shared a story as well about how she had a friend in high school who was a victim of sexual abuse, and she told her that she should not endure that any longer and she should come live with her. And the idea behind it was that she wanted to share with the public why she decided to become a prosecutor, and saying that that's what she'd been doing all along. And finally, she vowed to be the president for all Americans. She said, "You can always trust me to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles from the rule of law to free and fair elections to the peaceful transfer of power." Back to you.
Right, Rafael. Now that we've been talking about Trump versus Harris, now Trump was attacking Harris via his social media posts and handles while the Democratic candidate was speaking. Do you sense any level of nervousness within the Trump camp as Harris is also gaining a lot of momentum amongst the voters?
Yeah, you said it very well. The Harris campaign has been gaining a lot of momentum in the last few weeks. Let's remember, she has been running for president for only 4 weeks, and it was only tonight that she officially became the nominee from her party. It is expected, that's what we've seen before from the Trump campaign, that he takes every opportunity possible to rail against the Democrats, and specifically since it started a month ago against Kamala Harris. So there's not a big surprise there. We are 75 days away from the general election on November 5th. And what we know already is that there will be a debate the second week of September. It's going to be really interesting to see how they are going to talk to each other when that happens.
Right, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that debate. But her views on Israel, let's talk about that. The fact that she's reiterated that U.S. stance on backing it, even as protests have been witnessed time and again in the country. How do you think that's going to fare for the Democrats this time?
Well, it's certainly been a thorny issue for the Democratic Party, and there are differences and debates even within the party. And I can tell you, being here in Chicago for the last week, there were protests in spite of what many people were expecting. None of those was violent. The Chicago police was able to contain most of them. But Kamala Harris made it very clear during her speech how she feels about the situation in Israel. Let me read to you what she said. She made it clear. She said that if elected, she'll stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, adding that it's time for a deal to get the hostages released, and this is key, a ceasefire.
Right. Now, let's talk about the economy, because economy is a subject that has been interesting the voters and has been a point of contention when it comes to the candidates coming to fore. Now, economy is an issue that the Democrats seem to be on the back foot with. And with Kamala Harris pointing it out, and her take on the middle class and Trump's response to it is very interesting, especially after her DNC speech. Now, how do you see that?
Yeah, it's been interesting because there's definitely room for the Republicans to criticize the Democrats because they are the party in power. President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been in charge for the last 3.5 years, where there's been plenty of inflation. The inflation has risen here in the country. But tonight, Kamala Harris says that she is calling for creating what she called an opportunity economy where everyone has a chance to compete and a chance to succeed. She also promised to end the country's housing shortage and protect Social Security and Medicare. Her plans, she said, are very different from what Trump is proposing, and she made the distinction, saying that accusing Trump of fighting for himself and his billionaire friends, and she said she was going to strengthen the middle class. She also made the point during the speech that that's where she grew up, as a middle class, and she made the point that one of the priorities of her administration, if she wins the election, is going to be precisely that, protecting the middle class.
Right, Rafael, thank you so much for speaking to CNN on all these details. Well, that was Rafael Romo from CNN, who was shedding light on the much anticipated speech of Kamala Harris at the DNC convention today.